There was a time when darkness could kill us. Not because darkness itself was dangerous, but because of what lived inside it. A broken branch beyond the fire could mean a predator. A sudden fever could mean death. A dry season could erase an entire family. Ancient humans could not control the weather, stop an infection, predict an eclipse, or understand why the sky suddenly exploded with thunder. Nature did not negotiate with us. It froze us, burned us, drowned us, starved us, and hunted us. We were not the rulers of Earth. We were frightened animals trying to survive until morning. But look at us now. We create light with a touch. We force rivers to change direction. We make winter disappear inside our homes. We replace damaged hearts, build cities in deserts, and speak to people on the other side of the planet as though they were standing beside us. We have walked on the moon, photographed the birth of stars, and built weapons capable of ending civilization in an afternoon. The creatures who once trembled beneath the sky can now alter the planet itself. So what happened? How did a weak, slow, nearly defenseless animal climb from the bottom of the food chain and acquire powers? And more importantly, after gaining all that power, did we actually become wiser? To understand this story, we have to return to a world in which a small mistake did not ruin your day. It ended your bloodline. Imagine that you are standing on an open plain hundreds of thousands of years ago. You have no house, no medicine, no map, and no idea what lies beyond the distant hills. Your feet are bleeding, your stomach has been empty since yesterday. A child beside you is coughing, but no one knows why. The sun is falling, and your group has not found shelter. Somewhere nearby, animals stronger than you are beginning to wake. You cannot outrun most predators. You do not have claws. Your teeth are unimpressive. Your skin offers almost no protection. Place a human alone beside a lion, a bear, or even a cold winter night, and the human suddenly does not look like the future ruler of Earth. We look like dinner. Yet hidden inside that fragile body was something nature had never combined in quite the same way. Before hands capable of delicate control, a brain capable of imagining things that did not yet exist, and an intense need to cooperate with others. A lion was powerful, but it could not design a better claw. A bird could fly, but it could not teach its grandchildren how to build improved wings. Humans could look at a stone and see not what it was, but what it could become. That difference changed everything. Perhaps one ancient human picked up a sharp rock and noticed that it cut flesh more easily than teeth. Another learned how to strike two stones together to create a sharper edge. Someone else watched, copied the method, and improved it. The knowledge did not die with the first inventor. It traveled. For the first time, evolution did not have to wait for bodies to change. Humans could change their tools instead. If our hands were too weak, we created stronger hands from stone. If our teeth were too small, we created sharper teeth from bone. If our skin could not survive the cold, we covered it with the skin of another animal. Nature had given every creature a body. Humans began building additional bodies outside their own. Then we captured fire. Think about how terrifying fire must once have been. It appeared during storms, raced through forests, and consumed everything in its path. Animals fled from it. Humans probably did too. Until someone moved closer. Maybe they carried a burning branch away from a wildfire. Maybe they protected a small flame through the night. Maybe generations passed before people learned how to create it whenever they needed it. However it happened, the moment humans controlled fire, the balance began to shift. Fire turned darkness into territory. It pushed predators away. It provided warmth. It made food softer, safer, and easier to digest. It allowed people to gather after sunset when the day's immediate struggle was over. Around those flames, humans did more than eat. They watched one another. They shared information. They remembered the dead. They planned for tomorrow. Perhaps they acted out hunts, repeated warnings, and told the earliest versions of stories. Fire did not simply protect the human body. It expanded the human mind. For thousands of generations, however, we were still trapped inside nature's schedule. We followed animals because animals carried food. We searched for plants because plants grew wherever rain allowed them to grow. When food disappeared, we moved. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, some humans attempted something revolutionary. Instead of searching endlessly for food, they began controlling where food came from. They planted seeds. At first, this probably did not look like the birth of civilization. It looked like dirt, patience, and uncertainty. But planting a field was an extraordinary act of confidence. It meant believing that the future could be prepared in advance. Humans selected plants with useful qualities and grew them again. They captured animals, bred the calmer ones, and gradually transformed wild species into living machines. We did not merely adapt to nature anymore, we began redesigning it. Forests became fields, rivers became irrigation systems, animals became livestock, temporary camps became permanent villages. But controlling food created a new problem. Once people had grain, animals, tools, and land, someone else might try to take them, so villages built walls walls. Walls grew into towns. Towns became cities. Cities created rulers, armies, priests, workers, laws, and taxes. Human beings began organizing themselves on a scale no other animal could achieve. 1,000 strangers could now cooperate because they believed in the same king, followed the same law, feared the same punishment, or worshipped the same gods. This may be one of humanity's strangest powers, our ability to organize our lives around things that exist mainly inside shared imagination. A border cannot be seen in the soil, yet millions of people will defend it. Money is paper, metal, or numbers inside a machine. Yet entire societies move because people agree that it has value. A law has no physical body, yet it can control the actions of a city. Humans learn to rule not only with weapons, but with ideas. And ideas could travel farther than any army. Writing made them almost immortal. Before writing, knowledge depended on memory. A story survived only if someone remembered it correctly and passed it on. But once marks could represent words, human thoughts escaped the limits of the human brain. A person could die while their instructions remained. A ruler could command people hundreds of kilometers away. Merchants could record debts. Builders could preserve measurements. Generations could study discoveries made by people they had never met. Human knowledge began accumulating faster. Each generation no longer started from the beginning. It stood on a mountain built by the dead. That mountain grew slowly at first, but then something changed. Humans stopped accepting nature as an explanation. For most of history, when lightning struck, crops failed, or disease spread, people often looked toward the supernatural. The world seemed controlled by invisible forces, whose decisions could not be questioned. Then more people began asking a dangerous question. What if nature follows rules? What if lightning is not anger but electricity? What if disease is not a curse, but something physical that moves between bodies? What if the stars are not lights hanging above us, but distant suns? The moment humans began searching for repeatable rules, the universe became less mysterious and more usable. We measured motion, we studied matter. We examined the body, we tested ideas instead of simply inheriting them. And whenever a rule was discovered, it became another lever we could pull. Steam became movement. Movement became factories. Factories produced machines faster than human hands ever could. Coal, oil, and gas released energy stored beneath the ground for millions of years. Suddenly, one person could command the strength of hundreds of people. Trains crossed landscapes that once took months to travel. Ships moved without wind. Machines harvested fields, built roads, and reshaped mountains. Human power was no longer limited by muscle. Then electricity arrived, and night lost its authority. For almost the entire history of our species, the setting sun controlled human activity. Darkness forced people to slow down, hide, and sleep. Now we press a switch and summon daylight from a wire. Think about how godlike that would appear to an ancient human. A room glows without flame. A voice travels through the air from thousands of kilometers away. Frozen food survives for months. Images of dead people move and speak on a screen. You perform miracles every day without noticing them. You turn a metal handle and clean water appears. You swallow a tiny tablet and defeat an infection that once killed millions. You enter a machine, rise into the sky, and cross oceans before the next sunrise. The gods of ancient stories controlled thunder, traveled through the heavens, watched distant lands, and punished entire cities. Modern humans possess versions of all those powers, and we keep going. We entered the body and learned how life is written. We discovered that inside almost every cell is a set of biological instructions. Now we can read parts of that code, identify inherited diseases, and even edit genes. We can take an organ from one human and place it inside another. We can help people conceive children in laboratories. We can keep a heart beating after it has been removed from the body. We can replace joints, restore hearing, and rebuild faces. Death still wins eventually, but it no longer wins as easily. A child who would once have died from a small wound can now survive. A person whose heart fails can receive another. Diseases that once terrified entire civilizations have been reduced, treated, or eliminated in many parts of the world. We have not conquered mortality, but we have forced it to retreat. By the 20th century, humans had become powerful enough to challenge the planet itself. We split the atom. Inside a piece of matter too small to see, we found enough energy to destroy a city. For the first time, one species possessed the ability to create its own apocalypse. Then we looked upward. For thousands of years, the moon had been unreachable. It controlled tides, guided travelers, and inspired myths. People prayed to it, wrote about it, and imagined gods living upon it. Then humans built a machine, escaped Earth, and walked across its surface. A creature born in the dust of one planet stood on another world and looked back at its home. That image should have changed us forever. Earth was no longer an endless kingdom beneath our feet. It was a small, bright sphere floating in darkness. Every war, every empire, every border, every person who had ever lived existed on that fragile point of light. But human power continued expanding. We surrounded the planet with satellites. We began watching storms before they arrived, navigating through invisible signals and speaking across continents in real time. Then we connected billions of minds through the internet. For most of human history, knowledge traveled as fast as a walking person, a horse, or a ship. Today, an idea can cross the planet almost instantly. A teenager with a phone can access more information than ancient kings could gather in a lifetime. A sentence typed in one country can influence elections, markets, protests, and millions of strangers elsewhere. Humanity has created something like a planetary nervous system. Each person is a small node. Phones act like sensory organs. Cables carry information like nerves. Data centers store portions of our collective memory. And now we are building machines that can recognize patterns, create images, write code, converse with people, and assist in scientific discovery. For the first time, intelligence may no longer belong only to biological life. We are not simply creating better tools, we are creating tools that can participate in thinking. That should feel exciting, it should also feel terrifying. Because throughout history, human ability has grown faster than human wisdom. We discovered fire and used it to cook food, but also to burn enemies. We invented metal tools and turned them into swords. We learned chemistry and created medicine, poison, and explosives. We split the atom and gained both nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. Every power contains two possible futures. One builds, the other destroys. And now, the animal that once feared nature has become a force of nature. Human activity changes forests, oceans, rivers, and the atmosphere. We move more Earth than many natural processes. We determine which species multiply and which disappear. We can alter genes, redirect evolution, and potentially influence the climate of an entire planet. We have become powerful enough to create problems on a planetary scale, yet we still carry brains shaped by ancient survival. Inside modern cities, wearing modern clothes and holding modern technology, we remain deeply emotional primates. We still fear outsiders. We still fight for status. We still follow crowds. We still become angry, jealous, and tribal. Our weapons belong to the future, but many of our instincts come from the Stone Age. That may be the most dangerous mismatch in human history. We gain the power of gods without losing the impulses of frightened animals. So did humans truly become gods? In power, perhaps, we are approaching something our ancestors would have called divine. We create life in laboratories, send machines beyond the solar system, and command energy hidden inside atoms. But real godhood would require more than power. It would require wisdom. A child holding a weapon is powerful but not divine. A ruler capable of destroying a nation is powerful but not necessarily wise. A civilization capable of transforming a planet must also understand when not to do so. The final stage of human progress may not be gaining more control. It may be learning self-control. Our greatest challenge is no longer surviving nature. It is surviving our own abilities. Can we create intelligence without losing control of it? Can we edit life without treating life as a product? Can we use unlimited information without drowning in manipulation and lies? Can we gain the power to reshape the planet while accepting responsibility for everything living upon it? This is where our story stands today. Not at the end of human evolution, but at a doorway. Behind us lies the frightened creature hiding from predators in the dark. Ahead of us may lie longer lives, artificial minds, engineered bodies, settlements on other planets, and powers that currently sound impossible. The distance between that ancient human and you is enormous. Yet the distance between you and what humanity may become could be even greater. Perhaps one day humans will defeat many diseases, slow aging, build permanent cities beyond Earth, and create forms of intelligence more capable than ourselves. Perhaps future humans will look back at us as we look back at those figures around the first fire, brilliant for our time, but barely aware of what was coming. Or perhaps our power will destroy us before we become wise enough to control it. That is the tension at the center of the human story. We were born weak, so we invented strength. We were born cold, so we captured fire. We were born ignorant, so we created knowledge. We were born trapped on Earth, so we reached for the stars. Again and again, humanity looked at a limitation and refused to accept it. But every boundary we broke gave us a greater responsibility. The creature that once begged the sky for mercy can now change the sky. The creature that once ran from fire can now ignite a second sun inside a weapon. The creature that once struggled to save a dying child can now rewrite the instructions of life. We spent thousands of years acquiring the powers of gods. The next part of the story will decide whether we also acquire their wisdom. Because becoming a god is not about controlling everything around you. It is about becoming powerful enough to destroy the world and wise enough not to. Hit that like and subscribe button for more such videos.